We are exploring the 12 rising signs in astrology, and today we are talking about Taurus risings. So we're going to start by talking about the archetype that Taurus risings are embodying with that first house energy, and then we're going to go into like an exploration of a Taurus rising birth chart house by house. So Taurus is fixed earth. Fixed is the modality, earth is the element, right? And it is a nocturnal expression of Venus energy. So Taurus risings are ruled by Venus, right? And Taurus risings wear the Taurus archetype on their first house in the sense that they embody it. It can be one of the clearest descriptors of them within their chart. It's their positionality, their point of view within their chart, right? So Taurus risings are represented by the bull. And in that, we can see the kind of stoic, steady, stubborn, grounded. These are some of the words that you might hear associated with Taurus, right? So Taurus can be incredibly sense-based, right? They're material and they're Venusian. So they're taking in a lot of information from the five senses. And they are looking at things in a really holistic way from this point of view. The sum of their senses can be a lot greater than the parts, right? Taurus can be a little bit hedonistic on this same wavelength, right? Being so sense-based, but Taurus is also like incredibly self-controlled, especially when it comes to emotionality or things that feel out of control from the point of view of their own self-expression, right? Taurus is incredibly grounded. We consider them to be very security oriented. We tend to think of this security orientation as taking place in a more materialistic kind of way, but each Taurus is going to define security based on their own set of values, particularly because they're Venus ruled and Venus handles values, right? And valuables, which is, I think, part of why Taurus gets the materialistic, valuable earth Taurus, right? Taurus are very stubborn. They can be incredibly slow to come to a decision, and then they really want to stick with that decision once they make it. Tends to be where that stubbornness might come from. They also have a lot of show, don't tell energy, so they want to like see, in order to change their minds, it has to be demonstrated for them and provable in a certain kind of way. They're very concerned with the natural world, with the material world, and that stubbornness can also take form in the sense that they need to see progress happening in order to believe it, right? They're steady and they're often resistant to change, but they're also incredibly loyal. They are creative and artistic, but very hardworking. They can be incredibly like steadfast and pretty strategic in terms of pacing their energy output and going the distance, right? They like harmonious environments, and they tend to be great at creating harmonious environments for themselves and for the people who are in their close circle, people they trust, because the term trust is very big for Taurus. They're honest and reliable. They would be, in my opinion, the most calm, cool, collected of the zodiac. They like comfort, and they're willing to do what it takes to get there. This is what you'll see on the first house of a Taurus rising. So they're going to embody this energy and it's going to feel really strong in them, but it's just the first house. So that Taurus archetype just ends up being one piece of this 12-part pie. So as we move forward, we see Gemini on the second house. This means that when it comes to what they consider to be valuable, the ways they're willing to support themselves, the ways that they're willing to provide for themselves, they're actually very strategic and they're very adaptable. They're willing to do whatever needs to be done in order to secure themselves in this way. And they're great at changing and, doing that kind of mutable Gemini thing. They're great at taking in information about what works and what doesn't work in terms of supporting themselves and providing for themselves and taking good care of themselves, right? And then with Cancer on the third house, we can see that Taurus cares a lot about who is near and dear to them. Their heart is very open and they're willing to take care of the people who are in their regular life, the people who show up for them, but also the people who are close to them. And that's where you'll see them put a lot of their emotional energy, where they will be willing to put themselves out for other people, is these people who are in their near and dear life, in their immediate life, right? And then we have Leo on the 4th house. So Taurus is going to be, again, quite stubborn, going back to that fixed sign energy when it comes to their home life, to their relationship with their roots, their ancestry, all of these things. But this is also a certain area in which they can find themselves. So part of the rootedness, groundedness of Taurus is that there's something very identity focused for them in where they come from, in their home life, in what makes them feel comfortable and safe, but also in their private life and in their ancestry. So all of that could be a place where there is a possibility of them finding identity, if that makes sense. And also a certain kind of spotlight, because Leo. And then they have Virgo on the 5th house. So there's a way that this Virgo energy is speaking to a sort of meticulousness when it comes to fun and enjoyment and how they treat themselves well. And I think this is part of why we see that materialistic thing with Taurus, is because when a Taurus wants to have fun, they're very good at making the necessary grounded, specific and intentional steps and choices to giving themselves exactly what they want in that way. And that fun might not always look bursting at the seams, excited, exuberant to other people, but it is very grounded, and it is, again, a little bit security oriented in this way, because them having a plan for what makes them happy, what makes them feel joy, what allows them to reproduce themselves into the world, helps them to feel more stable in who they are. Then we have Libra on the 6th house. So when it comes to coworkers, relationships with their routines, they're very interested in finding a certain kind of balance, right? Which brings back this harmonious energy of Venus. It's very important for Taurus to feel a certain kind of stability in their daily, regular life. This is a cardinal sign, it's a cardinal air sign, so they're also looking for a certain kind of diplomacy and a certain kind of connection when it comes to their daily life. So when they're running their errands, they want to have sweet little small talk moments maybe. Or when they're handling things with their coworkers, they're prepared to be the diplomatic person in that situation, which I think can kind of go against the grain of how we think about Tauruses as being very stubborn. They're actually willing to give way in the mundane. It's just the big picture things are what they have a clearer idea of what they want for. With Scorpio on the 7th house, we can see this dynamic where the other could potentially pose a threat to Taurus rising sense of safety and security, right? So it's difficult for them to trust. There's a slowness to being able to truly express vulnerability, especially emotional vulnerability. So when it comes to actually feeling when it comes to where they are actually needing that security most, it's in being able to be themselves and in being able to trust the people around them, right? And then with Sagittarius on the 8th house, we can see that there is this part of Taurus rising that is very adventurous and is looking for more exploration and more expansion. And that's coming with the depth of partnership, right? So once that contract is signed, once you can trust that that person will be there for you, Taurus risings are willing to get incredibly adventurous and very explorative. There's a whole world to explore. And once they find someone, or once they know that they can trust the people around them, they can get weird, you know? And then with the 9th house being Capricorn, we're seeing a very structured approach to how they actually explore things outside of themselves and how they learn new things. But Taurus risings are really interested in expanding their sense of the world through really disciplined measures, right? So Taurus risings might be the ones who plan out trips far in advance, and they like to go somewhere every time this year, that kind of thing. Or they are secretly taking a language class or something like that, or writing a book. That's kind of Taurus rising vibe. Then with the 10th house being Aquarius, we can see that Taurus risings are actually quite experimental and are willing to be seen by the public as very different. They're willing to have an out-of-the-box public image and do work in the world that is really focused on other people and advancing society, even if that's not what's expected of them, right? They might have a really unexpected public life or job or purpose or thing they want to leave behind in this world. And then with Pisces on the 11th house, Taurus risings tend to be very open to who's in their community in general. It's just not who's necessarily close to them. They have a very large sense of appreciation for people at large, which I think can go unappreciated by their sort of loner stereotype. And then finally, they have Aries on the 12th house, which can give them a sort of impulsive internal world, and they might not always feel at ease under the surface, even though they're projecting something a lot more calm, cool, and collected. They can feel a lot of the ups and downs of their internal world really strongly. Oh my God, I can't believe I actually had time left. Gemini rising is next.